I'm currently in the middle of the Dolomites looking at rocks that have been here for like 200 million years. And all I can think is, how the f can one be worried about an email? I'd completely forgotten that such a freeing feeling can exist. And I think you might have too. But let's start from the beginning. I am in the Dolomites right now. I came here to hike, which, if you know me, is not exactly what's typically on my calendar. It doesn't really fit the brand, it doesn't fit the plan, and it's also not part of any goal I'm currently working toward. But I just wanted to do it because I used to do it as a kid and at some point I just stopped. But honestly, it sounds pretty fun and I grew up doing this stuff. I was genuinely good at it, and then I got older and got goals and had plans, and the things that I used to do just because I loved them fell first to the bottom and then completely off the list of priorities. And to be honest, the worst part is that I didn't even notice they were gone until I got here. But standing up between these massive rocks, I remembered something I'd completely forgotten. There's so much more to life than our little bubble. And if you're wondering, like, what bubble, what do you mean by that? Look, most of us, most of the time, live within a very small circle. Every single day we see the same people, we use the same apps, we have the same routines, and the same problems just circling our mind on repeat. And now, I'm not saying that having like a small group of friends or a consistent routine or something that you just do on a daily basis, a peaceful little lifestyle, is a bad thing. It is absolutely not. And a lot of us had to work really hard to get here. This small world for a lot of people is what peace feels like. You know, it's ours. It's our little thing that we had to build up. However, being in the inside of this little circle, everything that disturbs it feels really catastrophic. But looking at it from the outside, you know, if you tell a friend about these problems, they might say, well, look, it is not that bad. I know it can feel really bad, but it is not that bad. And this is exactly the feeling that you get when you stand in front of a rock that has been there for like 2 million years. You get the feeling that your problems are not that big. It's not that dramatic. They're still real, but they're not catastrophic. They suddenly become the right size. This is recalibration. And I feel like we're starving for it. We are so starved of this change in perspective because we only live inside this little world. You need to recalibrate every now and then. You need to be on the outside looking in. Which brings me to side quests. You know, in video games, the main goal is the main quest. But sometimes you get little side quests, like you can do things for bonus points or just because you want to. Maybe there are detours, maybe they don't actually get you closer to your main goal, but they can still be fun. And I feel like we lost the appreciation for these side quests in our lives. Sometimes side quests are the most fun things with the best characters and with the best plots. And I'm not talking about video games here. What about just doing things because you want to? Like, not everything needs to make sense for your brand or for your plan or for your goals. Maybe things can just be fun for the sake of them being fun. When you only do things that fit your goals, your plan, and your brand, you become this over-optimized machine that only lives for very specific goals. I feel like paradoxically, it makes you less fun. You're maybe more likely to achieve your goals faster, but it makes the whole process a little bit worse. If you don't have a lot of side quests, you're putting yourself in a bubble. I think life works exactly the same way. A side quest is anything you do that isn't in service of your main goal. Something you do because you used to love it, or because it's interesting, or just because you want to, or you want to find out if you can even do it. There's no ROI calculation, no strategy, and maybe it doesn't even fit in your 5-year plan. And you might be thinking, well, I don't have time for that. I have a main quest, I've got things to do, my calendar is already full. I thought the same thing. But then I went hiking in the Dolomites and I had more ideas in like 4 hours than I'd had in the previous 4 weeks of just staring at my laptop trying to come up with ideas. I don't think that's a coincidence. There's a part of your brain called the default node network. Turns out that it's actually active when you're not focused on a specific task. So it's active when you're walking, when you're resting without being distracted, like without watching TV, when you're just letting your mind wander, when you're painting something. And this part of your brain is responsible for creativity, for being self-reflective, for generating insights and coming up with new connections, realizing things. This is when your best thinking actually happens. This is what generates those light bulb moments. The problem is that if your life is just main quest all of the time, you never get to actually use this part of your brain because you're just thinking about something very specific all of the time. You're always focused, you're always in task mode, and so this part is dormant. Like this, you can miss out on the most creative ideas and the best insights. And a side quest is what can wake up the system. Also, there was a study from 2025 which looked at over 1,300 people, and it found that engaging in creative experiences such as music, dance, doing artsy things, even some video games, actually slows down brain aging. And also, the more regularly you did these things, the stronger the effect becomes. And I feel like this is incredible because yes, while having goals and having a consistent gym routine, being healthy, being productive is amazing, and it's something you definitely still need. Things that feel like side quests, things that feel not that important, can help your brain age slower. That is insane. So doing something you actually love doing is not a waste of time. So when I say you need a side quest, it's like a requirement. Your brain genuinely is asking for one. So my side quests look like this right now. Hiking in the Dolomites, getting back to training athletics just because I want to know if I can get better, if it's a hobby I might consider pursuing again. But maybe I'll be bad at it, and that's also completely fine. Spending more time perfecting my thesis because I genuinely care about the results. I'm curious what happens next with the research, and I want to give it my best. And just generally going back to things I used to love before I was someone who had a calendar or who had a list of goals and thought about them on a daily basis. And there's something that every single one of these side quests has given me that no amount of optimizing my routine and my habits ever has. It's given me perspective. It's reminded me that I can do extraordinary things, or I can do things that I'm pretty bad at and still have fun. It's taught me that I don't need to be good at something in order to enjoy it. It doesn't need to make sense. There doesn't need to be any bigger purpose behind doing something, except for the fact that I just want to try it. These side quests aren't separate from the main quest. They're actually what make the main quest more fun and also easier to do. You know what I realized on this mountain today? I think the most interesting version of myself is the one who does things because they're fun. Not the one who does things because it might make her more successful or more money or it would bring any type of academic achievement, but just because they're fun. And that version feels way more alive. And that's the thing I want for you too. I don't want you to lose that version of yourself that is doing things because they're fun and because it makes her feel alive. And I don't want you to lose yourself entirely in the pursuit of becoming someone impressive with a list of things that they've accomplished, but someone who actually isn't fully living life. Because being impressive and successful and having ticked off a bunch of goals without having fun is just exhausting. And if you're wondering how you can come up with side quests, I have 3 questions for you. First, what did you do as a kid before you were someone with goals that you now completely dropped? That's a good place to start. Try doing that thing again. Second, what is something you're curious about that has no obvious return on investment? This is not a skill that you can learn in order to put it on your CV. This is not something that fits the brand. This is something that you would do even if no one knew about it and even if it never led anywhere. Try that. Third, when was the last time you did something where you genuinely forgot to check your phone? Because that state is what you're looking for. That state is your brain in its happiest mode, and whatever got you into that state is a side quest worth trying again. Look, this doesn't have to be a big commitment. If you just take one afternoon every month where you do something that has nothing to do with your goals, you will have more fun. That is a guarantee. Your brain will thank you, and paradoxically, your main quest will go better. You don't need to overhaul your life, you just need to try things. And the email can wait.